Let's get into this discussion now. Business Unity South Africa has lauded President Ramaphosa's statements on the National Health Insurance Act. He vowed to address concerns raised by various groups about the affordability and sustainability of the scheme, which aims to create universal healthcare coverage. BUSA CEO is Cas Coovadia, who joins us this evening for a conversation about the statement you made on the back of the opening of Parliament address by the President, Mr. Coovadia. Good evening to you. When you say you are encouraged by the President's words on Thursday last week, what do you mean exactly?
Hi, thanks for having me. Hi to your viewers. So what we mean exactly is that we've been in all the interactions we've been having on the NHI since the President signed the bill, and even before that, we've indicated that we are at either more as government on trying to achieve universal health care in our country. We've also indicated that the NHI bill at that time, now and that, is an appropriate mechanism provided certain amendments are made, particularly how it's funded and also how it actually enables the public and private healthcare sectors to come together to address the healthcare problems in our country. Despite detailed submissions to Parliament and to the NCOP, the bill was sent to the President without any amendments, and the President signed the bill. What the President said in his State of the Nation address is exactly what we've been saying, that the public and private sector need to come together, the public and private healthcare sector need to come together to address health issues in our problems and to put us on the path to universal healthcare. That's why we lauded the President. He essentially said what we've been maintaining all this time. We've also indicated in our statement that the bill the act in its current form does not actually allow for the public and private healthcare sector to work together. Yeah. It crowds out the private healthcare sector. So that's why we said that the act needs to be amended, and we are committed to working with the President, with the Minister of Housing, and anybody else in government to see whether we can get onto the same page on this and, if necessary, get the act amended.
Yeah. So let's deal with what appears to be the elephant in the room, and that's to do with the amendments to how this act is going to be funded. Because your stance is quite clear that it's unaffordable, it's unsustainable, and it creates material risk for the country and indeed the taxpayers. I find very interesting the comments you've just made, that it crowds out the private sector. For this bill to be accommodating to the private sector, in other words, for it to not spell a death knell for the private healthcare sector, what needs or what changes are needed?
Well, to go through in detail on a short interview what changes are needed is obviously difficult. But there's a Section 33 in the Act which we've indicated quite often needs to be changed, which will address some of the issues we've got. But there are other issues. There are constitutional issues in the Act because proper processes were not gone through, both in Parliament and particularly in the NCOP, as far as addressing concerns raised not just by business, but even by some provinces. So there are a number of issues. We've detailed that in our inputs in both Parliament and NCOP. Happy to talk to government about those again. But at the end of the day, we believe that with some amendments, the bill can enable the public and private healthcare sectors to work together. We believe that by bringing in the skills, resources, and capacity of the private healthcare sector and working together to see how best to actually resource an NHI, an appropriate NHI that will put us on to the road to universal health care is far more sustainable, and we can work on how we utilize the resources and optimize the resources in both the public and private healthcare sector to do that. Is far more sustainable than thinking that, and 200 billion rand is mentioned by government. Those were the figures in 2010. Now it's probably closer to 400 billion rand. Treasury has made it very clear it does not have the money to raise taxes, whether it's personal income tax, corporate tax, or VAT, at a time when the economy is not pumping. Businesses are struggling to actually keep their heads above water, at a time when consumers and citizens are actually finding it difficult to make ends meet. It's just not sustainable to raise taxes.
Yeah.
And if we want to borrow money, we currently still sub-investment grade rated. Money, even if we can borrow money, it will be expensive. And already our debt service costs are one of the highest in the budget. So it's just not sustainable from that point of view. Yeah. And particularly given that we certainly believe that we can actually find a solution to this if we work together, it's unnecessary to take the sorts of risks that the act actually puts us towards.
You are now seeking a meeting with the new health minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. He's not new to the portfolio, and if I've watched him many times, particularly when he believes in something, he can be quite determined. And I say this on the back of his very strong stance. He made a very strong case for NHI in his budget vote recently. Do you believe that you can sway the minister in order that these amendments that are needed are indeed effected?
Well, on the back of what the president said, that we need both the public and private healthcare sectors to work together on this. We would certainly want to try and convince the minister. We have asked for a meeting. As soon as we get the meeting, we will put our arguments to him. Ultimately, it's his decision, but if needs be, we will also put our arguments to the president, given that the president has indicated that public and private healthcare sectors must work together. We are still committed to engaging on this. Some organizations have already taken the government to court on this bill. We have indicated consistently that that's an option we would consider if we need to. But to have an act caught up in the legal system for a couple of years doesn't address the healthcare problems in this country. So let's not get there. Let's try to resolve this. Let's see if we can. We will certainly put this to the minister, and we will see where we come out in the discussion.
The minister saying that he believes that a phased implementation of the NHI is probably going to be the way to go. He was saying this in the National Council of Provinces, and this is where he told that particular gathering that 62.2 billion budgeted, or should we say budget, tabled by his department would go a long way into leveling the playing field so that universal health care is ultimately achieved. Any word on those comments?
Well, it doesn't matter. The act is complex. Even with the amendments that we are suggesting, it's complex. It will be a complex piece of legislation that cannot be implemented overnight. There will be phased implementation. It will take time. But to say that a phased implementation of a flawed piece of legislation, that does not take us anywhere. Whether you implement it tomorrow or implement it over the next 5 years, it's still a flawed piece of legislation. And the results of implementation would still be just as problematic, whether you implement it now or in over 5 years. So it's not the period of implementation. Irrespective of what the act looks like, it's going to be phased implementation. But we still maintain the position that let's get an appropriate piece of legislation on the table and work together to implement this over a period of time in a sustainable way so that we do achieve universal healthcare.
Cas Coovadia, CEO of Business Unity South Africa.
Thank you
very much for your time.